Hey, it's Megan. If you are new to my channel or just checking me out, I am a type 1 diabetic of 10 years, and so a lot of what my channel focuses on is type 1 diabetes and lifestyle and all that good stuff. So today I actually wanted to talk about extended boluses. So the extended bolus is a feature on a pump that I have been utilizing so much since switching to an insulin pump. So it's not really something you can do with just pens or MDI. It's like a special feature of the insulin pump, but I have been loving it. It's been so useful since I switched. So basically what an extended bolus is it is a dose of insulin over an extended period of time. Unlike just a regular bolus, which is all of your insulin given all at once, it's a delayed insulin dose, basically. So you can pick how much you want up front and given right away, but then you also can pick a time, and over that period of time, the rest of that insulin dose will be given to you in little bits. So the extended bolus is a really great option for meals or for snacks that are slower absorbing. So slow absorbing meals are things that are going to be high in fats and high in protein. So fats and protein slow down how quickly the carbs we eat are absorbed. So you want that extended bolus feature because as the carbs are absorbed over time, you also have more insulin given over time to kind of match with the absorption so your blood sugars can stay nice and level. A lot of times when we go out to eat, a lot of those meals from like restaurants are going to be higher in fat, higher in protein. And so an extended bolus can be a really good option if you are eating out at a restaurant. But it also applies to meals at home. I know a lot of my even healthier meals that are high in good fats still need the extended bolus because they absorb over a longer period of time. When you're trying to decide if an extended bolus is a good option for you, a lot of times I look at the contents of my meal. So I look at, well, how much protein is in the meal? How much fat is in the meal? And what are my carbs looking like? So a lot of us are gonna be really familiar with our proteins, chicken, beef, even black beans and different kinds of beans. So a lot of us are comfortable with looking at a meal and deciding how much protein is in it. Fats can be a little bit trickier. So a lot of times full fat dairy, cheese, milk, yogurt, that kind of stuff will delay absorption. But also things like peanut butter and nut butters are high in fat, avocados. So you really want to look at your meal and look at the components of it to break down if an extended bolus is going to be a good option for that meal. So one particular meal that I always use an extended bolus for that I make at home is actually my overnight oats recipe. Overnight oats recipe is made up of oatmeal and then full fat dairy milk or a non-dairy milk, which still usually has a little bit of fat in it. And then I add in peanut butter and full fat yogurt and then usually a fruit. So there's a lot going on in this dish. The peanut butter, the dairy, the yogurt, those kinds of things are what causes it to be slower absorbing. But then I also have carbs from the oatmeal and the fruit that are going to be absorbed kind of quickly. So I know that I'm going to need a reasonable amount up front, but I also know because of all of the fat in this dish that I want to use an extended bolus to cover that slower absorbing carbs later on. The way I do an extended bolus, which again, you'll have to test out what works for you. This is just what works for me. But I start by counting the number of carbs in the dish. So in this particular overnight oats recipe, it's about 45 carbs. And then I actually go ahead and add on between 8 and 15 extra carbs to that number because I want a decent amount of insulin up front to cover the initial carb spike. Then I also need enough insulin throughout the rest of that 2 or so hour period to cover the rest of the slower absorbing carbs. So I take my 45 gram carbs for this and I actually add on 10. So when I'm putting it in my pump, I put in 55 grams carb. And then I move through the pump until I can check extended bolus. And once I'm in the extended bolus screen, there's two different percentages. There's a percentage that I want to give up front, and then the second percentage is going to be what I want to be given over a period of time. And then there's a little box where I can choose that period of time. So to start, for upfront percentage, I usually do somewhere between 60 and 80%. So if my starting blood sugar is a little bit lower, then I start with 60% because I don't need so much insulin right up front. But if I'm relatively in range or even a little bit high, then I want to start with that 80% because I need a decent amount of insulin up front to cover the initial carbs that are going to be absorbed. And then for the timing, I just generally stick to a 2-hour period. And over that 2-hour period, that's when the rest of that 20% is going to be delivered. So I found that for this overnight oats recipe, it works really, really well because the initial insulin I give covers the spike from any of the fruit or the oatmeal that absorbs right away. But then the delayed absorption from the rest of the fats from the dish are balanced out by that delayed insulin that is being given over the 2-hour period, and my blood sugar stays nice and level. So it has ended up working out really, really well for me. So that's basically the essence of an extended bolus. You are giving yourself insulin up front, but then there's delayed insulin that's given over a certain amount of time as well. So it works really, really well for high fat, high protein dishes, especially when you're eating out, pizzas, cheeseburgers, that kind of stuff, or even just cooking at home. You really want to look at the contents of your dish and just play around with it. It definitely took trial and error for me to really get down bolusing for my overnight oats. So if there's a meal that you're eating a lot, you can kind of play around with different percentages, how much you want up front, the time period, and just see what works best for your blood sugar. But of course, I just want to finish off by saying I'm definitely not a doctor, not a CDE, not a nutritionist. So this video is kind of just about what has worked best for me, and I'm just sharing that with you. I would definitely say talk to your healthcare team before making any changes in your own healthcare plan and insulin dosing and that kind of thing. But if you liked this video, please head to my channel and check out what else I have, and also subscribe. It would mean the world to me.